Hi, 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 run for your life.
Mustard!
Okay. Well, what else could it be, right? I mean, Kendrick Lamar, GNX on a random Friday in November. Why not?
Right. At
Y-
11 o'clock in the afternoon.
Sure.
Yeah.
11 o'clock's not in the afternoon, but I get your point.
That's a whole different conversation. We're not going to.
That's not
Anyway.
what we're here for,
No.
anyways. Kendrick Lamar, just decided on a Friday, hey, let's drop the project. The album's out. It's certainly something. We finally got that the full version of that, the famous snippet going around, the broccoli snippet. Um, I think it goes without saying. On the show, we've talked a lot about how Kendrick Lamar just is one of the best artists right now, one of the best artists ever. He's certainly right up there for me in my internal debate of who I would consider the greatest rapper of all time to be. Um, and coming off one of the highest highs you could have for a year without even dropping a project,
Right.
and really only dropping like three or four songs that were his own songs, which is nuts. Um, but yeah, overall, he certainly is one of my favorite artists of all time. If we're talking personal favorites, Good Kid, Mad City is my personal favorite, but I do really enjoy almost every other project. I will say Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Oh, I just inhaled Sprite. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers wasn't necessarily all for me. I really respect it as a project, but certainly one that I don't come back to nearly as much as the rest of his discography, including the Untitled Unmastered project, which is essentially studio sessions from the To Pimp a Butterfly era. But let me let the viewers and the listeners know your opinions on Kendrick Lamar.
K Dot's my guy. uh, I'm kind of in the same boat. Could be one of the greatest to ever do it. Can't really argue you if you do have him in your top five. It's great candidate. To Pimp a Butterfly and Good Kid, Mad City are some of my favorite albums, just hands down. In hip hop, um, I like some of his older projects. Um, I can't think of the Section 80. One of my another one of my favorite projects. I'm in the same area with you when it comes to Mr. Morale, Big Steppers. Um, I think I think Kendrick is right now in his prime. I think that we're gonna get some really cool stuff. Hopefully sooner rather than later. I know this is already sooner than we both thought. He really shut us up very quickly. Um,
Yeah, that Instagram reel we put out, my take aged very poorly within
yeah,
5 days,
yeah,
but
that
it's
nuts.
okay.
But I think we're gonna get some real cool stuff
Yeah,
in the future. I think, yeah, that's about it.
yeah.
That's my
No,
guy.
I'm with you, and I think a lot of his circle around him is hinted at that as well. If you look at and I guess we're just going straight into conspiracy theory route right here to start the episode. Um, like all of the Heart Part series have always all dropped before the album. We
Mm-hmm.
get the Heart Part 6 on this one. So, maybe that's a thing. Um, a lot of the artists he worked with on the album also have kind of said, like, this is just stuff in the meantime. The album is coming and it's a lot crazier, super influential, innovative, or whatever you want to say. So there definitely is kind of that feel around this project. I will say, like, kind of the minute you go through it, at least for me, the first listen through, I was obviously like, I'll start off by saying I enjoy the project a fair amount, but it is pretty clear to me that it does feel similar to how listening to Might Delete Later by J. Cole felt for me,
100%.
in that it's like, really enjoyed the project, lots of fun tracks, stuff I'll come back to 100%, but it's like, in terms of what I am familiar with that artist putting out, I wouldn't. It doesn't feel like that's the full thing that they've been working with their whole heart and passion for the last little bit on.
Right.
Especially given the content that we've gotten from him earlier in the year.
Yeah.
And again, that's not to say there's anything really inherently that bad about this project. It's just like, the vibe I get from it is more like an Untitled Unmastered from him, where it's like, I think the album is going to be more fleshed out,
Yeah.
for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah. It's giving mixtape vibes for sure.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good way to phrase it as well. I mean, I'm assuming, just generally before we get into specifics here, it sounds like you're also a fan generally of this project.
Yeah.
And who wouldn't be if you're a fan of good music?
Right.
Because we dive right into the production, and for me, I gave it a 9 out of 10. These West Coast, just fun, crazy vibes on it are super. I can't. I hate to say the word fun again, but it's just like so much fun. Like,
Yeah.
Hey Now is one that comes to mind. Like, just that boom, 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 and you're like, oh shoot, what do we got going on here? This is
Right.
crazy. Obviously, we know the snippet on Squabble Up, like, crazy beat there. Whacked Out Murals is also a great beat. Top to bottom, I just feel like there's so many fun moments on the production side of things, and for a mixtape where you could really, give half your heart to the mixing and mastering. Kendrick always, at least to me, the unique thing about him putting out a project like this, if it is a holdover, which it does feel like it is just that his standard is so high. Like, I'll go into this more later, but just his ability to put something great out is crazy, even when it's kind of feels like it's not even his standard.
Yeah. I gave production a 10 out of 10. Top to bottom, I had zero problems with any of the instrumental. I was bopping my head for 44 minutes straight.
Yep.
Top to bottom, you get these, like, even the slower down, the ones with SZA,
Sure.
Luther and Gloria.
Mm-hmm.
You got these Pac influenced beats like Reincarnated.
Yep.
That one had me. Oh, I was going ballistic with that one. That production was crazy. You got Mustard on the beat again. That was crazy. Right. So, like, top to bottom, I was having a blast. I was vibing out to these more melodic ones. There was nowhere throughout my 3 listens where I was like,
sure,
production could have done a little bit better right here, right there. Not like, that's not to say, like, other albums or projects aren't as good as this one production wise or whatever. Just I didn't have any kind of a problem. So 10 out of 10.
Yeah, 100%. And to me, I will say, if we're talking lyricists, I feel like a lot of people that we currently talk about in the best lyricists currently in rap, for me, like, Drake doesn't really come into that category too much, although people put him in the big 3 a lot. And I will say, if you're talking biggest artists, it's undeniable he's up there. But I feel like the main lyricist, like when we're talking lyrical ability, J. Cole is probably the next one that comes up a lot. And to me, that area of Kendrick's music is where he typically just blows Cole out of the water. Like, production side of things, like when you're listening to a what's the name of the song? Money Trees. And you get, I think it's Beach House. Is that the sample? Anyways, I'm exposing myself for forgetting all of my music knowledge. But Like you just get these crazy samples and crazy beat moments from Kendrick Lamar, and that's not to say Cole has trash beats, but it's just like Kendrick's beats are like almost always 9 or 10 out of 10 to me,
Yeah.
and then the lyricism on top of that just makes it insane. But um, I'll digress and go into the vocal aspect here. I was pretty harsh on this category. I gave it a 6 out of 10. Um, and it really just for me was it's a lot of the new accent based styles that he's been doing recently, kind of post hillbillies, where it's a lot of this kind of like almost southern stylistic thing that he's doing. And that's not to say it's trash, but I just prefer the different vocal stuff that he's done in the past
Yeah.
far more on like To Pimp a Butterfly, Good Kid, Mad City, Section 80, all that kind of stuff. I think he's got a really cool and really unique voice, and I don't think he really needs to try too much harder to do anything new and innovative. And to me, the vocal delivery that he does often use on this project comes across more boring, at least to my ears, than to the previous few that I've heard from him in terms of albums. But that's not to say that there's no fun, engaging, energetic moments. And even when he's using the accent, there's some crazy stuff like I keep bringing it up because everybody's familiar with it, but the Squabble Up first verse where he's like, he is heavy into that accent on that verse, but it's still like crazy catchy and the vocals are infectious on it. But yeah, overall, just not for me. But I will say, flow wise, the flows are immaculate. Like it's so crazy that he is so innovative. Like he just does things. I'm like, how has nobody in all the years of hip hop thought to do this? And this man just like pulls it out of a hat on like a given track with Lefty whoever is on there, and you're like, what is going on? It's pretty crazy. Another just nod to him as one of the greatest musicians of the era.
Yeah. So I ended up giving it an 8. I do hear you, and I do agree with a majority of what you're saying. I don't remember exactly which song it is, but it bothers me so much. He's like, dun, 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 dun. I don't know the lyrics of it, and I don't know exactly if anybody's gonna understand what I mean when I just said
You
that.
wait, are you talking about on Squabble Up when he's like, I look good, get the out my face?
Yeah, that part.
No, that's so good. That was what I was talking about, where I was like, that's so catchy and crazy. Like, how did he think to do?
No, okay.
No, I like
Every
that, but I hear why it would be annoying. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's just the tone is like I'm like okay, all right,
Yeah,
let's squabble.
I for sure hear why it would be annoying. To me, it's almost like it's so just um it's almost like a tongue-in-cheek vocal delivery that he's just like he knows it's not like Adele singing, right? Like he knows he's not trying to be a vocalist, but he's just like the song is a braggadocious song in nature, right? Like
Right.
he's just talking about how he's like this guy. And
Yeah.
so when he's like, I look good, get the heck out my face. Like it's just like it's one of those things where you're like, oh man, I feel good. Like
No.
and it's cheesy that you're saying it, but you just like it's funny and like it knows it's funny, and that's what I like about it. But I hear
See,
what you're saying. I hear what
part
you're
of it
saying.
because I really do like that song. I feel like I might warm up to it in the near future, just right now, and like off the first listen,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like that's where it's like okay, let's
Yeah,
move
yeah, yeah.
on.
For sure.
I do love the flows that he brings onto this entirety of a project. I love his melodic flow with SZA. I thought that was a
Hmm.
great track.
Yep.
I just it's once again hard for me to like really pinpoint any like, and I don't want to sound like I'm glazing or anything, but like there's not really like too much of a
That's
problem.
that's always a good way to start a sentence.
um, the only other song that like I was like nah with the vocals is it's a different feature. It it annoyed the crap out of me. It might be it's either Peekaboo or GNX. It's probably Peekaboo. And I
I think GNX had a couple features that I wasn't in love with,
hold on, I just gotta.
but I mean, I'll get to features in a minute when we get there. But
Oh yeah, no, it's peekaboo. What they
okay,
talking about? They ain't talking about nothing. What they talking
yeah,
about? They ain't talking about
yeah,
nothing.
that's
Yeah,
true. Yeah,
yeah. I was like,
no,
all right,
I'm
let's
with you. I'm with you
calm
on that
down.
one for sure.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
continue.
yeah. No, that's it. So eight
Okay.
out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and we'll move on to the next category here. But I will wrap this one up by just saying, give it a couple weeks. That one's going to
That's
come
what
on shuffle randomly. You're going to be nodding along. Everybody knows the sample already. We already got the lyrics memorized. You're going to go right into that chorus, and you're just going to be feeling yourself, and you're going to be like,
no, no, no.
"Get out my face," and you'll be like, "Oh shoot, he was kind of right about that one." I'm just
I'll
telling
admit
you.
it to I'll admit it to
Okay,
you when it
okay.
happens too, because I feel like it will happen.
Yeah. But to go into the lyrics here, obviously the main draw, what I feel like for every Kendrick project, and not that the other aspects aren't good, it's just always what he's been so much better than everybody at. Again, here they're great, honest, fun at different times. Like it gives you a little bit of everything, even in just like the short run time, and in the relatively short amount of time that he shines on each project, where he's not giving sections of the song over to other artists. It's not the most complex, and he kind of goes right into that. I think on Whacked Out Murals, he's like, "Screw a double entendre, like I'm just going to talk straight to you, so you know what I'm talking about." And
Yeah.
that does kind of go into the concept that we'll get into in a minute. But it's still like, despite him saying that, like there's still like some crazy levels to different bars on this
Yeah.
album. One that comes to mind for me right off the bat, that like the minute it hit me, and I like, to be honest, I had to kind of like look up who he was talking about, because I was like, I know the name, but like I don't know what we're talking about here. Um, where it's on Hey Now when he says, put a square on your back like I'm Jack Dorsey.
Mm.
Don't know if you caught that bar. Don't know if you've looked into it or if you know who Jack Dorsey is. I didn't know who he was.
I only
Um,
know of him because of the Corday song Super.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah, fair enough. But Jack Dorsey, obviously, co-founder of Twitter, also co-founder of Square, like Tap to Pay.
Mm.
This, if you're familiar with the Square company's logo, it's a square, but it also has another square in it, like a little bit of a target look, right?
Yeah,
So like put a target on your back, so like double entendre there.
that's pretty good.
But then if you look more into it, like when you pay with your phone or with like a card that you tap to pay, which part of the phone do you put against the square? The back, right? On your back, right? Crazy, but not done yet, right?
Oh,
Jack Dorsey describes himself as a self-made, self-taught billionaire.
mm.
Kendrick Lamar kind of giving an homage to that, saying like, I'm the reason that I'm here. Don't really have to give too much credit to other people like a lot of these other artists might have to do. And then, you could go into all kinds of Twitter stuff, layers of Twitter. Drake's got a pretty famous line, trigger fingers turn to Twitter fingers. Drake feels a lot more like the latter part of that phrase nowadays than he does as the earlier part of that phrase. Anyways, crazy layers. I feel like I could pull like 8 meanings out of just that bar, and I'm like, this dude, right? Like,
Yeah. It's
um,
gotten to the point where you could do that with so many of his lyrics or songs, and who knows if he's actually thinking of every single one of
sure.
these things. But
Yeah.
it's also Kendrick Lamar, so you can't put it past him. Like there's
Yeah.
no chance he did think of all 8.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
For real. For real. But anyways, and that just is an example, but it does feel like there's quite a few moments on there like that where you're like, this dude says he's not really trying to do this, and yet like here we are. It's like
Yeah.
quadruple entendre. But yeah, it still does provide great introspection on various moments as well, which I really respect. I really like a lot. I will say my main grievance with Euphoria and Not Like Us still stand with Kendrick in the fact that I feel like it backtracks on a lot of the quote unquote growth that he's talked about in Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. And I feel like that carries over a little bit onto this project as well. Not a whole lot, but it's like you're talking about all these crazy growth moments on Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and like all these things that you realize are just all these vices for you, and how you're trying to break free from that. Talking about finding peace from within, which he talks about on this project as well. But then you have him like talking about doing psychedelics, and you're like, is that really like, is that really the best way to go? Maybe it is. I don't know. You know, my experience, maybe not. Anyways, there are just a few moments where I just, you know, it does make me look back on an album like Mr. Morale, and we're like really talking about like all these violent stuff to like other rappers. And I get he's probably meaning it metaphorically in the rap sense, but still like
Right.
just the way he's bringing it up just still sounds a bit like he's kind of backtracking on some of the stuff that he said on Mr. Morale. So, you know, that being said, I really, really want to give this section a 10, but I did give it a 9 just because there are some moments where I feel like it leaves me a bit of a confused state with Mr. Morale in this project at different times.
So I agree with the rating. I gave it a 9 out of 10. And it really came down for me 3 songs. It was Man at the Garden, Heart Part 6, and Reincarnated. I think all 3 of those, they're all these different stories, and I love Kendrick for being how deep he is with his music. It's what I go to him for. Like, yes, he makes bangers, but I like to think and like have this like entire imagery festival in my mind, like, and he does so well with that. How I feel about kind of what you brought up with Mr. Morale and that like growth, and then now you're like over here telling Drake that he wishes you were dead, the whole thing.
Sure.
Reincarnated kind of settled that down for me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Mainly because it's talking about like he's talking to who I'm assuming is God in the song, and
Yeah.
he's saying like I'm trying my hardest, like I'm giving you everything I can, and in this song God is saying, well, no, you're broken and all you want is war, and you're making it very known, like you're not growing at all. And so it's this back and forth little like conversation, and so it has me thinking like Kendrick knows what he's done and in the position that he's in, and he's aware of it, and he's currently figuring out if he is in that spot or heading in that direction, because
Yeah.
you know you're in this Mr. Morale and Big Stepper mindset. Like, you are trying to be better. You're about the peace and the love and all this stuff. Granted, I don't think it was a big deal, and I don't know what would have made
Sure.
Kendrick snap to the point of saying, "No, you should die."
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
know what really made him snap.
Yeah.
But things happen. So
Right,
like I
right,
said,
right.
for me, Reincarnated kind of put it into perspective.
Yeah.
His
100%.
perspective. So
Yeah,
I
100%.
appreciated that song for that reason.
Yeah. No, I am with you. I do agree with you a lot on that one as well. I do have a bit more to say about that track specifically. But yeah, I think you phrased that really well. I'm not even going to add anything onto it.
Thank you.
But going into the concept here, kind of loose, but for me, relatively clear of kind of just continuing off of where he left at the end of Not Like Us, where especially towards the end of that song, I mean, obviously we're roasting Drake, right? Like that's the main premise there. But then Kendrick kind of gets into talking a little bit more about how Drake's kind of like a symptom of a bigger thing that's going on. And Drake's kind of like, just like Kendrick going in on Drake is just more of a symbol of what's wrong with the entertainment and especially the hip hop industry. And I can't remember the name of the song he put out on IG quite a while back, but that song really, really makes it clear where he's not even bringing up Drake by name. Yeah, I think that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Where he's basically just like saying, all the same stuff that he was saying about Drake, but to a vague audience, and saying like, it's all these other people as well. And to me, he kind of continues on that path here on this album. There are still some like pretty blatant shots at guys like Drake and Lil Wayne, although I don't really feel like that's too much of a shot. But uh, basically just saying like how he is trying to set himself aside from what the industry is and has become, or maybe has always been to some extent. But just saying like, I'm here for the music. I'm here because I love the music. I'm great at making music, and that's what I'm passionate about. I'm not here for all this other fluff and like, bad stuff that goes on in Hollywood or whatever. And there's one line that's pretty, that brings that idea up for me, where he basically says like, he's describing the past year and basically says like something along the lines of, come down and make a big chaos of everything and then just disappear back into hiding again and spend time with my family. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, there's not a whole lot of people that do that can just drop a project, do a quick tour. It's crazy. It's nuts. It makes massive waves. And then it's just like, all right, I don't have to do any press. I don't need to go talk to anybody. I don't need to, be in any movies. I don't need to do any of that. I want to go spend time with my family. It's pretty cool that he does that. I do, along with that idea of him not being just another industry guy, he kind of does a lot of what you talked about just a minute ago, of like reflecting on, despite me trying all these things, I'm still flawed in so many ways. And how do I change that? I feel like I'm talking way too much on this episode, but
that's how I felt with the lyrics.
Okay. Maybe, if you're sick of listening to my voice, it's okay. You can tune out the episode. No. I don't care. But like on Man in the Garden, it's a good example for me. Pretty much the whole time he's talking about like, I deserve it all. Like, I deserve all these accolades I'm getting. I deserve the Grammys. I deserve the praise. I deserve, essentially at one point, he's like, I deserve to go into heaven, like, for all my efforts. But I think there's something poignant about saying I deserve it all, and not saying I deserve the good, or I deserve all the great things. And I feel like there's kind of always throughout his career been this other voice in Kendrick's head that kind of is like, you're not everything you think you are, and you have all these flaws and all these terrible things. You deserve that too, almost. And I feel like I get more of that. Like a perfect example is the songs I and You from
I was just
To Pimp a Butterfly, right?
Now. Yeah.
Where it's like you get all these highs, and you get like the I love myself, and then you get the like, right? Like famous clip that's everywhere now. But you really do get that. And I feel like on this one, you still get some of that, but it's from the tone of how he sounds, where it's almost like he's saying it like undecidedly at some points, where he's like, I deserve it all. Like, the good end. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it's just how it made me feel. And I feel like that's what the music does to you. Say all that to say, it's really good. It's an 8 out of 10 for me, especially for a holdover album where you're like, he doesn't really need to do anything with this one, and yet he's still saying some introspective, cool stuff. I really like that.
Yeah. So should have talked to you beforehand, because all I really got from like my listen throughs are some of what you said, kind of like all of these things are happening within the industry, and like here I am working my butt off, but all I'm getting is what seems to be hate from everybody. But you know what? I'm glad that they're showing that they hate me, like, or they're not with me, because then that's what I got.
Yeah, for sure, huge aspect of it. Yeah,
right. I gave it a 7. Felt like, maybe it was the right number to give it. I don't really know. I kind of guessed with that one.
It's solid.
Okay, cool.
Moving right along here, something we've kind of hinted at earlier. Feature section. Overall, it's just not for me, the feature palette that he used. It is really, really cool to me to give a voice to artists that people maybe aren't familiar with. I really, despite it not being for me, I truthfully hope that someone who's a K Dot fan listens to this and they hear Lefty Gunplay and they're like, "Holy crap, who is this dude? Let me put on his music," and like he ends up having a successful career. Like, despite all the hate that we may give out to musicians, like I will be the first to say, like, it's hard to put yourself out there. It's hard to make
Yeah,
art, and I really hope that they find success.
100%.
And so, even though it's not for me, even though I'm a little bit harsh on my grade here, like, truthfully, it's really cool for him to do that. It's really cool for these artists to get on a track and be able to go, with a Kendrick Lamar, back to back verses like that. Who grows up thinking of being able to do that? Like, that's crazy.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's not for me. I don't love the deliveries of a lot of them. I think their lyrics are generally not great. I think the vocals also aren't that great. SZA was good. Dodie Six, I actually enjoyed a fair amount on Hey Now. I thought he was fun. Um, but yeah, I ended up giving it a 4. It's just not really for me.
Whoa, that that's not what I expected.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I had
Um,
I had to pull up the praise first because I was pretty harsh on it.
that's funny. Um, I gave it a 7. Usually when it is, usually with these people that I don't know, I feel like I am usually harsher. Um, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I agree. I like Jody Six. I thought he
Yeah.
did good. SZA killed it. The little samples from the mariachi lady.
Yeah.
I thought that was a cool aspect. Little something so different that who's thinking of that at a
Right.
Dodgers game? You
Yeah.
weirdo, calm down. Um, I was perfectly fine with Lefty.
Yeah.
Um, to be quite honest, the only two songs with features that I wasn't huge on was Peekaboo. I did not care for however you say that person's name
Hmm.
as Shike. Not for me.
Yeah.
And then Hit a J3, Young Threat, and whatever that name is. I
Peso.
sure. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Tell him Peso did it.
Yeah. Maybe it was.
Tell
Maybe it
him
was.
Peso did it. Yeah. That's all I remember from his verse, to be honest with you. That's why I did that. But yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it was just the song that
Sure.
I wasn't huge on,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I mean, still give it a 7. I thought for the most part, it was cool to hear some of these new artists that or maybe not new, but new to
Yeah.
me. So I thought they were all right.
Yeah, for sure. And I, like I said, I'm pretty harsh on it, but just like because of what it was for me as a personal enjoyment, not really because I like wish them ill will. Like, that's not
Right.
what I'm saying at all. Um, but yeah, moving into the last section here, replay value. It's really good for me. It is significantly lower than what I would give almost every other Kendrick Lamar album personally. But it's still an 8. Like, I'm still going to listen to a lot of this. It's fun. Like, even like, like I can't even say that I'm never in my life going to come back to the, what they talking about? I ain't talking about nothing. Like, that I'm never going to come back to that just for like what's going on here? Like, this is kind of crazy. Um, yeah, there are a couple tracks I don't love personally. And like I said, almost every other Kendrick Lamar album is pretty close to a 10 for me on replay value. Um, Mr. Morale's probably the only other one that's not really up there at that 10 level as far as replay goes. But yeah, I really enjoyed a lot of it. There's a lot of fun moments, a lot of catchy moments, just a lot of like crazy stuff to come back to that you don't really get elsewhere in his discography.
Right. Sorry, I almost just started a house fire with my outlet.
Oh,
Um,
shoot.
yeah, no, we're good. We're in the clear. I end up giving overall enjoyment an 8 out of 10. There were only a few tracks where, and it's really just because of the features. And then even though I thought the vocals sounded great and everything, Gloria wasn't really my like just one of the songs that I'm not really going to come back
Yeah,
to. Luther, on the other hand, that I thoroughly enjoyed that one. Anyways,
sure.
not the point. There's just a couple where I was like, good song, probably won't come back to. Wasn't this or that. I feel like there's a lot of greatness from this album.
Hmm.
So I'll just be happy with that and take all that I can.
Yeah, can't can't agree more. Um, overall, for me, the album came out to a 7.3 out of 10. I might like say that's just slightly low. It's maybe more like a 7.5, 7.75, something in that range. But overall, pretty close.
Yeah, that 4 you gave was killed it.
Yeah, it did. But to be fair, just for my personal enjoyment, that's kind of what a lot of the feature presence did to the album. Like I just was vibing, and then I was like, okay, like not for me.
Yeah.
Big section here, big stretch. That's not for me. But yeah. Anyways,
Um, Mine came to a 8.1. I
yeah,
give it like an 8. I'm cool with that.
fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough. Talking about a couple of his tracks specifically here, best, most underrated, and least favorite track. For me, for the best one, I do have Reincarnated, which you brought up earlier. I really, really, really enjoyed the storytelling here. You don't get as much of the kind of catchy, poppy aspects that you do on some of the other fun tracks on the album that are really popping off right now. But I really, really like the idea of the storytelling, where he kind of goes over this idea of being continually reincarnated as all these different people in all these different walks of life, and kind of trying to step in somebody else's shoes. Obviously, he's not really the first person that I'm familiar with doing this. Logic's album, Everybody, that's pretty much the whole concept of that album.
Right.
And I would be surprised if Logic was the one who invented that idea. But that's where I first heard it in music. Um, but anyways, a really cool idea, really well executed idea, and a really introspective song to listen to and kind of think about what he's talking about. And a lot of the lyrics really tell that story really well.
Yeah. My best is TV Off, just
Yeah,
because of
it's
how
hard to
much
say
fun
no.
it
Yeah,
is. I know it's gonna be like not like us. It's gonna get so much play.
yeah.
And I'm hoping I don't overplay it for myself. Because it is a lot of fun. I think Mustard
Yeah,
did great on the production. Lyrically, it's not as good as a Reincarnated
sure.
or
Yeah,
Man in the Garden or Heart Part 6, but
yeah.
nonetheless, you're still getting lyrical content. You're still getting a funky West Coast beat, and you're screaming mustard out.
Mustard. Yeah, right.
So, I had to give it to it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there for sure. Hard to argue that one. My most underrated track was one that you've also brought up quite a bit. It's the Heart Part Six. I was surprised that this was one of the lower streamed ones on the album because of how good the lyrical content in is and how much I enjoyed the beat as well. I love that he kind of just reclaimed the title of the Heart Part Six like nothing happened, and how nobody's really even questioned that. Like nobody's even really been like, Drake did it. Drake already made that song.
Bro, I've seen one
Because like,
person say that. Like,
but it's like as he should. Like that song
yeah,
kind of
it's his.
tanked and wasn't that good, and like it's Kendrick's thing, and so
Yeah,
like literally the best thing he could have done is what he did, just put out the song, and then anytime anyone comes back to the Heart Part Six,
it's
that's
gonna be
like
Kendrick.
what's gonna come up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that for him. And kind of like just a little small nail in the coffin of the Drake thing. Just be like, oh yeah, and that one song, it's still mine.
Yeah. My underrated. That's where I am putting Reincarnated, just
Okay.
because
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that. Truth be told, Reincarnated is my favorite song off of the album, but I'm putting it in underrated because it's not going to get the streams that I think it deserves. I think this Tupac-esque beat is wicked. I think the energy that he provides throughout the entirety of it is awesome. The storytelling, the lyrics, just it might go down as one of my favorite songs just in general.
Yeah.
That's how great I felt about it. Um Something kind, I don't know if this is about Drake, and it wasn't even a diss. That's why I'm a little confused.
Yeah.
But towards the end, I actually think it's like the second to last line, third to last line. He is like, I wish I never made him an enemy. So I'm wondering if he's talking about Drake or if he's talking about somebody else, or where are we at in that story. So
Yeah, and you know, I wouldn't be surprised either way. To be honest, like as you bring that up, that is one of the bars that doesn't really like ring too much of a bell. But like, it's been 4 days and I've listened to this thing 3 times, so like, you know, some of
yeah,
them are just are you know I'm gonna have to come back to later. But
bro,
to your
this
point, if it is about Drake, you know, it's not surprising to me.
right,
This is the guy on his last project that said when Kanye got back with Drake, I was confused. Like I've
yeah,
still got some growing to do. You know, I don't foresee him as the guy that wants to hold enemies forever in his life, despite the fact that he may have some now and again.
yeah.
Um, or if it is about somebody else, you know, I could also see him still not being over the Drake thing, and that's totally cool too. So, but
Right.
yeah, what were you gonna say?
Reincarnated was like the one that caught my full attention to where I was hanging on to every word, and that's why
Yeah,
like that's been resonating with me since I first heard it. I'm like, man, who the heck is this guy talking about?
yeah.
And we'll never know.
um, Yeah, to move on to my least favorite track, I was kind of disappointed because I really did want to like this one a lot. Just I thought it was a super cool title. Dodger Blue wasn't
Wow.
for me necessarily. It was just something about the execution of the sound. Again, like I don't think it's a terrible track. It just wasn't one for me. I also did have GNX and Peekaboo kind of in that ballpark as well, just for the features on those ones. But yeah, in terms of picking a least favorite Kendrick song off this one, I did go with Dodger Blue.
Wow. That's a little shocking.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said,
Not what I
it's
would
just
expect.
personal.
Valid. One that I probably won't come back to either all that much. But when you say something like, and I quote, beam, bop, boom, 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 bop, bam, it makes me question some things.
Yeah,
Peekaboo was, I'll just say it outright awful. I couldn't stand that song in the slice. It actually pissed me off the second time I listened through the entire album because it came back on, and I'm
yeah.
like, what am I listening to? This
What
sucks.
they talk about, they didn't talk about none.
Bro,
What they talk about none.
all of it's trash.
No,
Scrap,
I kind of liked
scrap
it.
it. No,
No, I'm just kidding.
scrap the song. Kendrick, you almost had it. Scrap it. Get rid of that one.
Not
Pull
for
a
you.
J.
Not for you.
Cole and delete that one.
No,
It was
harsh.
awful. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the only harshness I have towards it. That song was
yeah. Fair enough.
terrible.
Fair enough. Like I said, it was one of the ones that was up there for me, but
Yeah,
knowing myself at one point, I'm probably just going to go back because that's like such an outrageous, catchy, random hook.
what they talking about? They not talking about nothing. What they talking about? They talking about nothing.
Yeah.
And then I like that they switch. They take turns saying it. Just
Yeah.
kidding. I hate that, and it's dumb.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, overall, I don't think the note that you just ended it on reflects how we feel about the project overall. But
The project's great.
yeah, it's super good. It's super good. For me, I don't necessarily think this one will make an end of the year list, but it might surprise me. It might be in there.
Yeah,
But yeah, how about for you?
there's a good chance. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and we're getting down to it. We're right there almost. I got to start
Yeah,
listening.
yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta.
I will
Look
say, this will for sure when I go back to make my end of the year list. I kind of have like a running list throughout the year of what I feel like is close, and it's probably like 15 to 20-ish albums at this point that I feel like are kind of in that top 10 bubble.
Yeah.
And those will be the ones that I'll go back and listen to and kind of like try to
Right.
pick out where I would put them in the year.
Yeah.
But this one's for sure in that it's getting a re-listen towards the end of the year kind of thing. Just with how much I've enjoyed other projects this year, I just don't know if it's going to make that spot, but it might for sure, 100%.
See, I need to figure out a solid way to track what like throughout the year of what I've heard and where I'm putting each one.
Yeah.
Because I gotta even remember what the heck came out this year, and that's gonna be annoying and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So, but
I'll have to next time we hang out. I'll have to show you like how I track mine because like I found a pretty easy way. But yeah. Anyways, Kendrick Lamar, GNX, it's solid. That's very good. It's worth a listen.
It is.
And until next time, I don't know what we're doing next week. Maybe we'll review Wicked. I don't know. Who knows?
Hey, I'm down.
All right.
Looks like a great movie. I'm not being sarcastic. I'm stoked.
It might be crazy. We'll see. Until next time, thanks for anybody
Mustard!